All right, thank you. Welcome everyone. This is an interesting one. When Matt asked us to do a webinar, I was at a bit of a loss, to be honest, because I didn't know really what to do it on. We're the same as anyone else. We're a distributor. We do cameras and network optics and various things. I really didn't think we had anything different. And then all of a sudden, that's what I decided to focus on. There is actually things that we do different from the rest of the world. And that is primarily focused around the operating system that we put NX onto. So that's primarily what this presentation is about. And your hosts today, Matt and Andy, we can run a poll if you like, which one's which. I know Matt does a better voiceover than I do. Go on, Matt, give it a go.
I'm not doing anything, mate.
We'll find out at the end who thinks who's
I can do the chef, and that's about it.
Hebert. And honestly, I do feel like a muppet today because 10 minutes before this presentation started, I've been watching webinars all week, joining them, doing, it's been fantastic learning from them. And then I jump on as a presenter today and go to the presenter portal for GoToWebinar, which is what we're using. And it doesn't support Linux. So lo and behold, my entire presentation is based on Linux OS. I'm running a Linux rig, have been forever. I hardly ever touch Windows. And 10 minutes before the presentation, the first time I've done a GoToWebinar presentation, it says Linux is not supported. So I've quickly run up a Windows virtual machine, and we're now presenting from a Windows virtual machine. So you'll have to keep me updated, Matt, if the audio's okay. Yep. And please, anyone, fire. I don't think the chat's open, so you'll have to fire any comments through the question side of things and GoToWebinar there. But
we have our first international attendee. Hello, Ichiro. How are you, mate? Good to see you on. It's bloody early there this week. He's in Taipei, so it's like 7 a.m. there.
Cool. And for the audience, Ichiro is one of our excellent support people in the Oceania region, isn't he?
He's amazing. We're trying to get him back into Australia and New Zealand as quick as we can.
Let's get off this Muppet page. I think I've explained my situation well enough. Quick intros into these things. NX. How many of our attendees are new to NX? Do you reckon, Matt?
None.
Okay. So we're not going to go over the pros of NX. This is a mission statement cut straight off the website from NX. I love it. It's clean, straight to the point, and absolutely 100% true. That the bottom statement here, this one makes me laugh. You know the movie Miss Congeniality, when all the girls get up and say, what do they want for the world? World peace. Makes the world a better place.
I do like that movie.
Yeah, very good. This is, I'm not too sure if it was the mission statement of NX, but this is what they had in 2016. And one of the phrases then from the founder, Sergey. Is it Sergey or Sergey? I've always called him Sergey. Yeah, Sergey. How many Sergeys are there in an NX? Sergey A, Sergey B.
Sergey Y.
Yeah, there's quite a few Sergeys. But one of his statements was create software that was so simple. An interesting statement, but it's absolutely true for NX. And NX is really super efficient, is the guts of it. And what we do differently is all based on that efficiency. NX requires an operating system to run on. NX on its own doesn't do disk management. NX on its own doesn't do network management. it needs all of that from the operating system, and none of that is available to Nx. And operating systems, generally speaking, are not actually that efficient. So what we've done is we've taken Linux from various stages through the years, and we've tried to make it as efficient as possible to create a true Nx appliance experience. The latest version of Nx is that NxOS that we're doing is hopefully that. Here's another graphic again from, this one was from 2015, so I think that this is even a surprise to you, Matt, this graphic, which just shows some of the beginnings of Nx way back as 2010, and it first got released as a media player. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt. Eve was the name of the daughter of Nathan.
It's Nathan's daughter.
Yeah. It morphed into HD Witness. There's a few references in the operating systems. The file folder structure is still referred to as HD Witness, but it was we pretty much came on board around this area, and our first experience with Nx was just at the cutover of HD to Nx, so right around here. So I've kind of been with Nx for a while, and it's been a fantastic journey. And we've taken our installers on the same journey as well. Lots of installers that we have been with us right from back there. This part here, Nx HAL or hardware abstraction layer, that's kind of where I kind of gravitated to that side with the operating system. I don't think it ever eventuated through Nx, but it's kind of where I've gravitated to. Very quick history on NFS, literally been around close to 30 years now. The owner of the company, Steve Mahoney, his wife is involved in the business as well, financial controller. Lovely people. I've always known Steve as the gentleman of the industry. I joined in 2015. I think that the aspect ratio on the photo's out somehow. I don't recall myself being that chubby in the face. You probably correct me there, Matt. Maybe that is a good likening. Yeah, joined in 2015. I've known Steve. Steve was my supplier for 20 years. I was big in Aricont cameras, and I know that Nx was, Sergey, I think, was heavily involved with Aricont, maybe one of the senior engineers out of there, perhaps.
Actually, most of them were.
Yeah, a lot of Aricont guys. It was actually Aricont that put us on to Nx. When I did my first network camera in '97. And that was an Axis camera. Axis did their very first camera in 1996, the Axis NetEye 200. Then the Axis 200 Plus, I think it was, then the Axis 2100. And those were the very first cameras that I did, network cameras. It was quite in its infancy then, IP camera stuff. And for Steve, I'd run around his other customers, and I'd do the networking for them on their DVRs. Still very much analog back then, but the DVRs were network based. So that's kind of pretty much where I came from. NFS, we did our first Nx license purchase in 2015. So yeah, we've been with Nx for quite some time, not as long as our mate Daz in Australia, and of course a lot of the Nx guys, but there's only a few of us that could say they've been with Nx for this long. And in 2020, correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, we were the top Nx distributor. Am I correct in saying the world?
You are correct in saying the world.
Thank you. Nx is is also known as other products throughout the world. So it's not overly as fantastic as it sounds. New Zealand, little old New Zealand. I think it would be right to call some of the other variants of Nx as actually forks in programming speak. They're a fork of Nx. So they're all individual in their own right and share some code base, but they're all very individual. So we're the top Nx distributor. Our friends in the States, Digital Watchdog, shout out to Wade and Patrick and Adam, I think would be one of the largest groups out there. And of course, James, shout out to James Cox, Network Optix, taking Europe by storm now. Let's NFS. We've got several brands that we call ourselves brand ambassadors. That's literally what we are, distributors of the product, but we're ambassadors of the brands that we're with. We're very loyal and passionate to them. And over the years, we've done lots of brands. I don't know if anyone can recall Dedicated Micros and the digital sprites. Aracont's thrown in there. When I joined NFS, we were actually an Exact Vision distributor. And 3 weeks after I joined, Tyco bought Exact and went exclusive to some of the people. So we went looking for a new VMS. And that's when Aracont put us onto Nx, something we were very, very grateful of at the time. And in dealing with Nx, Nx, as I said, Nx is software. I quite often employ a 5S mentality, 5 S's. There's 5 S's to a whole system. You've got your surveillance cameras, you've got your structured network cabling, you've got your switches, your network switches, you've got your servers, and then you've got your software. And all 5 of them combined give a system. Nx on its own is not a system that can do anything for you. So there's all these other things involved. And that's what we do. We supply that whole ecosystem that makes it all happen. And we're quite passionate about it. Nx early on in the piece did their own hardware. Up here, the few of you might be familiar with them. I think you've got a couple still on hand, don't you, Matt?
Actually, I think you'll find that I reckon you'll find that ISC stole them off me and still haven't given them back. So James, I know you're on. I'd like those NX2s back at some point.
Nice dig. Yeah, so this is the NX2, a 4-bay shuttle, a cube, I don't know what you call it. The NX3 was a nice hard drive dense rack server. NX1, interesting little product, the little server hive NX1, that was great, but sort of came end of life. We won't go into some of those stories, will we, Matt?
No.
Moving on. NFS, starting back with my Exact Vision days, and I kind of got into Linux in 2008, I think roughly. This here is a fanless dual core Celeron single hard drive bay ruggedized server, absolutely fantastic. And Nx being so low processor usage, worked great on these dual core atoms. This is our NX1 server, which again was a fanless 1U dual core Celeron, I think it was. Took 2 hard drive bays, little half depth 1U fanless server. All of these are still going today. Even since 2008, this is actually still running my household. All of my cameras on that, and it's still the latest version of Linux. Actually, not quite. The latest version of NX. It's still running now. The Intel NUC is a great product mover for us. A super micro 4 1-bay server. Down here we have our workstation, this aspect ratio is not correct on this image. It's actually a little 1U half depth server. And we also do PoE ports on the back of that. And that server has made Nx very affordable for our installer base. It allows us to virtually compete with the embedded NVRs out there from the likes of Hikvision, Dahua, and all of these things. It really has allowed us to compete with that sort of thing. And this large box here is 8 bay 2U full depth server. That's our beast. And all of these servers, all of the NFS servers, we've all put our operating system on it all along the way. I think I've even changed out. I've still got NX2s running, and they've all been upgraded to our operating system, which we'll get into pretty much now. As I said, Nx is so efficient, and I found that the operating systems weren't so efficient, and everyone, I think, has a love-hate relationship with Microsoft over the years, how it changed. And you know, I really loved Windows 95, the way it worked, and it was just pretty much just 1 or 2 clicks you get to where you needed to go. Linux, you know, has over the years has morphed and changed and become that. But I guess one of the key things about Linux is that you're not paying a Windows license, and you can equate a Windows license to, let's say, 3 Nx licenses, equivalent kind of cost associated with it. So by putting in Linux, there's an extra cost saving. You can put 3 more Nx licenses on it and still be at the same cost of a Windows box. So that was one of the things that we moved to Linux for as a cost saving aspect. And then there's the whole memory usage. And dare I say it, what's the one thing you hate about Windows there, Matt? I think most people, updates. Update. Windows Update. You know, that's just a nightmare. To be fair, I think we all have issues with that. And of course, I don't have that issue with Linux. So our current operating system is just built on the bare bones. I call it just enough OS, and that's an actual term. You can look that one up on Wikipedia. Just enough operating system to get the business done. Our operating system has morphed over the years. You'll see I don't have any graphic from the original one that I did, 2014, 2015, 2016, but it was built on this Ubuntu Mini Remix by a guy named Fabio. Produced this little ISO that was nothing but a Ubuntu client CLI command line interface image. And on top of that, I was able to throw pretty much a graphics stack. Then as NX sort of came out with different versions, and it was actually hardware. Most of the changes were forced upon us by the Intel NUC, to be honest, where they'd come out with the 5th gen, 6th gen, 7th gen CPUs, and it all required the next kernel, Linux kernel, up to in order to run. So I moved off onto an operating system which based on Linux called Elementary, and it was pretty and it was easy to use, and I was able to talk installers through it quite easily. We kind of hit a roadblock there with Nx did some explicit Ubuntu only checking in their in-client update. So even though I could install Nx on Elementary, I couldn't do an in-client upgrade as Nx progressed to version 4. So along with Nx changing and the Intel NUCs changing, we progressed to Ubuntu. My very first version of NxOS that I did was actually sort of pulled pieces out of Ubuntu. Very efficient, very low resource use. That was great. And now we're at our NxOS 4.2. I've pretty much gone back to the beginning. my beginning servers, I can still upgrade them today, and the interface just won't change. And that's the one challenge that you have with operating systems, is every time they come out with a new operating system, there's new graphical interface, there's new ways of doing stuff. It's not generally easier. And it's just one thing I hate. I just wanted that consistent NX appliance experience. So we went back to the basics and just put on the true tried and tested components with some extras. And so we're going to get into showing you some of that today. This little history of NX you can get on our website, on our support portal. We've got our NX versions. We've got a few things on our support portals that relate to our operating system. This is the NxOS graphical interface. It's lean, it's cut down, it's got just what it needs. You'll find at the very top here, you'll find some very simple menu structures. Everything's showing through full screen okay there, Matt?
Yep, all good.
Yep. I noticed that when I was using GoToWebinar, you've got the video panel at the top and the meeting interaction panel at the bottom, so it doesn't full screen very well. So if you need to see things clearer, within GoToWebinar there's a little magnifying glass, if you like. You can choose full screen and you can drag your screen around to see things that you might not be able to see clearly. So just give that a go if you need to there, people. But NxOS just provides the bare bones basic of what you need to operate the system. You can launch the client with just a right click and then choose the client. You can get to the NX web server, click. File management, disk management. Over here is your network manager. Again, that's a right click, edit connections. It's actually not where we want people to do our network management. We've introduced NxOS Cockpit. We'll get into Cockpit very, very soon, but that's a much better place to deal with our NxOS. But it's simple and just bare bones, literally bare bones. One of the things about the operating system being bare bones and following the same mantra as what I sell NX on is its size. We can, if you want to zoom up your screens there, you'll see that our system boots and presents a graphical interface on less than 300 megabytes of memory. Let's just call it 300 because this is a screenshot from a virtual machine, and on the physical hardware, I think there's another 10 megabytes on top. So less than 300 megabytes of memory, you've got a full graphic stack ready to take the NX client. And the NX client itself, when it's running, is just under 700 megabytes of memory. Now, we're running this operating system on some pretty low-end hardware with 4 gig of memory, 32 gig operating system SSD, and then whatever size hard drives we can throw in the machine. And it just creates a nice low-cost server. But at the same time, these low-cost servers can easily handle 100 megabits a second of camera traffic. Now, if you're dealing with operating systems that are taking up more memory, then that's less cameras. So if we can give you a graphic stack that provides the smallest amount of memory, then that's more cameras that you can run on the server. Very coarse maths there. Then the other thing that we've done with the operating system is we've allowed the installers to choose how they want it to boot up. You can boot it up and just treat it as a pure server, no keyboard and mouse on it whatsoever, and screen, and that would be called a headless setup. We'll move into headless setup shortly. But a lot of the installers, you actually need to manage your cameras and NX on the server itself. So we provide a solution whereby I call it boot to NX. So if you choose Nx Witness as your startup option, reboot the machine, 30 seconds later when the machine boots up, you're just straight at the Nx client all the time. Our operating system, we actually use as client only for some people. So even though the server's installed on it, it's just relatively benign in the background, new server ready to set up. You can actually just use our operating system as pure client only, public view monitors, whatever the case might be. So that's where boot to Nx client is very relevant. It's the same operating system off every single piece of hardware that we sell. So it's, yeah. Just as a comparison, I booted up Ubuntu 20, standard Ubuntu 20, and I chose minimal install mode, which is a new feature in Ubuntu 20. They may have had it in 2018, I'm not too sure. I think they did have it in 2018 Linux, minimal install mode. What that means is it installs your Linux operating system with none of the Office suites, the docs, the spreadsheets, all of these other things. All it does is, to be honest, it still puts on a lot of bloat, a whole heap of stuff that I take off. But in a minimal install Linux on exactly the same piece of hardware, you can see that Ubuntu boots up at almost a gig of memory. Now that's 700 megabytes of memory that we're saving, and that's 700 megabytes more memory that you can put to camera resource running this machine more efficiently. Another comparison example with Ubuntu running exactly the same client on exactly the same machine as I showed you our operating system running on, 1.4 gig of memory while the operating system Ubuntu's running. So, and we were running at 600, we were less than half of that. Another interesting point is the less bloat in the operating system, is less bloat on the SSD, the operating system drive. And just on this particular virtual machine, the comparison between the two is Ubuntu very quickly run out of the 10 gig that I allocated to this startup. I'll take a breather. I'm a little bit nervous. I don't know if I'm going too fast.
No, you're good.
No, we're good. I'll just take a second and see if anyone wants to throw any questions in there before I move into what we call the Nx Headless setup. As I said, that's when you've got no screen and keyboard and a mouse. The one thing that Nx doesn't do, you've got to set an IP address on it before you can do anything with it. So we've got to have the tools to be able to contact the server, set its IP address, and then fire up Nx as a new server. No questions come through there, Matt? I can move forward?
Go for it, mate.
Go for it. So one of the first challenges in a headless, no screen, no keyboard, no mouse, boot up a server, plug in cameras, you've got to be able to find it on the network. All of our servers are DHCP enabled on any non-PoE ports. So, 99 times out of 100, you'll throw your server onto a network where it'll pick up an IP address. Sometimes it won't. So you absolutely, if you don't have a static IP address, which we set on the PoE ports, if you don't have a static IP address, then you're going to have to put a screen, keyboard, and mouse on it. But with DHCP, the easiest way to find the IP address of a new NxOS server is to boot up an Nx client, which automatically discovers new servers. And that will give you what its current IP address is. You can launch into here, fine, but chances are you want to change the network, static IP the network, various things you got to do. So by using Nx to auto-discover the network, we can now web browse to that server. Now this uses the interface called Cockpit. You'll get to see it all through this demo. It's a web management system for the operating system. So typically when you web browse to it, Chrome is pretty much the flavor of the day. You'll accept the self-signed certificate and choose to proceed because you realize that you know, you want to do what you're doing. And you'll get presented with a beautiful web interface that allows you to log into the operating system through a web browser remotely. If you were to port forward 9090, you have this remotely. Otherwise, just, you know, go through there locally on your network. Our servers have some preset credentials out of the box, which all of our customers are well aware of. And it comes with a piece of documentation. In the server is a README first, very important README. I think it's the first piece of paper that installers throw away. You know, that's how installers work. You tell them not to write on the box when they buy a camera from you, so they can return it. They never do. So yeah, just keep that in mind, installers. Once you log into the web operating system, it allows you to gain access to everything about the operating system you need, and a really nice GUI friendly interface. You know, if you can't navigate your way through this, then you probably best pack up the server and return it to us. Networking, health management. Let's have a quick look through here. This is our network address management. We can see that this server has 3 network ports available. One of our workstation servers has got 8 PoE and 2 LAN. So this would normally be the PoE LAN 1, LAN 2. Easiest way to figure out which one's it, which is actually plug a cable into it, and it'll show as active, inactive. But our PoE ports, we assign a static IP address. So you can always whack your laptop into one of those PoE ports. You've got hard drive management. Nx requires the operating system to present it hard drives. So if an installer has to replace a hard drive in the future, or you know, for whatever reason, Nx ain't going to help them. It's the operating system that you need to format the drive and present the drive to the operating system so that Nx can use it. So you've got to have access and know how to do that for hard drive replacement. And the cockpit storage allows us to do that as well. Cockpit, it's an open source project. We bundle it in our operating system. It came out of Red Hat. If anyone, I think it came out of the Red Hat stables or the Fedora stable, but probably which is the more open source, freer version of Red Hat. You heard that one before, Matt? I have to make sure you're on your toes and you haven't wandered off on me.
I haven't heard of that one. So I'm all good, mate.
Yes, Cockpit, fantastic, fantastic product. Literally, it's a web operating system that we put on our servers. Getting into some of the underneath of what we've done, I know that some of the NX boys, of course, they put explicit Ubuntu. They expect their operating system to be Ubuntu. They expect it to be the Ubuntu desktop, which I've proven is just absolute bloat. So this under the hood, it just shows you that we actually build our operating system purely on Ubuntu. It uses a method called debootstrap. It's used on. It's a Ubuntu tool. It's a Linux tool. It allows you to install a version of Linux as a folder on another machine, and then allows you to build that package up. So this is how I created our installable operating system. So it takes, in this case, we're using Ubuntu 20, the latest version available of long-term service Linux. And we package up just the bare bones of it. And I'll quickly, this is a little install video. If anyone's installed Ubuntu, then this screen they'll recognize pretty quick. It's a sped up video. It takes about 30 seconds. So it goes through a normal Ubuntu installer. And I've customized, I actually had to customize the slideshow installer for various reasons. And it does a Linux install. So every one of our machines, hardware servers that we sell, we have plugged a USB into it we have installed it, we've formatted the drive, we've run it up, we've tested it. And I do have to confess, it's a very human process. And I think occasionally, very, very rarely, we have sent a server out we haven't actually run this process on. Twice ever, I think. What a nightmare that was. I actually got an installer to download my image and run through the install over the phone, which was really cool. Once our operating system boots up, I build into it a update wizard. What that update wizard does is it runs off to a website that we manage, and I load into that website what version of the latest version of Nx Witness to install on a machine. We also install Google Chrome and Chrome Remote Desktop. I've got a section on that further down. The latest version of Nx Server, the latest version of Nx Client, and in regards to our PoE workstations, we load the drivers on there as well. So all of our latest OSs, when they go out the door, at some point in the future, if they need to install Nx, a different version of Nx, they can do that through this wizard. They just click the wizard, answer a few questions, and they get the latest things. It also means that we can push out variances to the operating system that we might discover, bug fixes. We've recently partnered with DW, Digital Watchdog, out of the States. And in order to get the analytics working on their camera, with their cameras in NX at the moment, we have to install a plugin. So I can load that up into our script up there. Anyone who wants it can just run the wizard and answer yes to the DW plugin, and it would do that. So it's a little bit like a Windows update in that regard, but I'm in full control of it. Let's move on to some of the advanced features of what Cockpit can offer for these servers. This is the wizard running through, by the way. It just runs through and asks you if you want to. I'm no graphic designer, so I just use pure script. I'm all self-taught, so I don't have the cleanest of code available, but it works. We don't have any troubles there. One of the things about NX, one of the real powerful things in NX is actually launching the client with some command line options. With command line options, it allows you to launch NX on a particular screen if you're multi-headed. It allows you to open particular layouts. There's so many things. You can find this article on the NX support if you just use a couple of keywords here, desktop CLI. In NX support, you'll come pretty quickly to this article. The thing about launching NX with all these command line options is you've got to load the correct NX version. You've got to figure out what that is first. So in the support article, it gives you those methods. I don't know about you, Matt, but would you be comfortable running through some of these methods on a Linux box?
No.
No. A lot of installers aren't. So our system, our NxOS, I've bundled that up into a script. And in that script, I automatically list the most recent version of NX installed. And then we automatically call that version of NX as part of the script. So whenever you launch NX, it'll always run through that mechanism and always build the latest script, or run NX with the latest. Lots of parameters within the NX in startup that are very, very valuable. Again, that article will explain them all, but if you're dealing with automatically loading layouts for customers, especially when you're using NX Client as a public view monitor, or you just want static screens set up, then you've got to go to the command line. And we've endeavored to make that as easy as we can for the customers. As an example, in our operating system, we have, within the menu structure, you'll find one called Getting Started. Now all that does is it connects automatically to our server. It automatically loads a particular layout and automatically does a few things. And what you'll get when you launch our desktop and choose the getting started, it'll log into our server and it will take you through a PowerPoint or Google Sheets presentation actually of how to set up the server. We've got in there network setup, hard drive setup, everything that you need to do on the OS in order.
Lost you there, Andrew. Your audio's dropped out, mate. Please hold while we fix technical difficulties. Andrew. Your microphone's dropped out, buddy. His internet has dropped off. All right, take this opportunity, people, to grab a quick drink. Hopefully he'll be back soon. If you have any questions, you can put them in the questions tab as well, and we'll get to them as they come through. It's a question from Ryan. Audio is down for me. Yeah, I know that, mate. Audio is down for everyone.
All right, are we back in, Matt?
Yeah, we're back.
All righty. This is why I don't like Windows. Windows decided to reboot on me. This is the Windows virtual machine, so we're not gonna dwell on that one too much. Let's just try and get our screen back to full screen, shall we? What have we currently got? You want to allow me to present my screen there, Matt?
Yep.
Brilliant. Show my screen. Are we back in? Have you got a full-on screen?
Yep.
Awesome, buddy. This is the advantage of putting an agenda in your slideshow. Is I should just be able to click straight back. Come on. No, it's not gonna. Let's just somewhere around here. Oh, fuck it. Let's just move on. Hope you can edit out that blasphemy that I just used. We won't dwell on that one. Okay, we were at Nx under the hood. We know what we're doing. So if things go wrong in a live demo, they truly go wrong, don't they, Matt?
Always.
I thought, to be honest, I think that was a brilliant recovery. I'm only trying to make myself feel better. Oh, that's what I wanted. All right, some cockpit advanced stuff. This is, I know people will be keen on this sort of thing. What cockpit allows us to do is within the services, Linux has got little timer scripts basically built in it, and this cockpit operating system allows us to access those operating system timers. So what I've done is by creating a script that uses the Nx Witness API, and here we go. You can see up here. We're calling a camera ID. We're calling a JPEG image from it, and using the timer, I can tell it to run that timer at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m. Pull a JPEG snapshot from NX, store it on my server, and then at a later date, we can use another Linux tool, which is actually what NX is built on, FFmpeg, I think. I'm pretty sure. And tell it to make a video out of all of those snapshots. That is really cool. I'll actually show you. I've been running a snapshot out of one of my cameras at home, so I'll show you that in action too. Through that web interface, it's quite easy to do. This is one of the benefits in dealing with NFS, we help you out with this type of scripting stuff. Another use case for creating a timer, we had a customer that Nx, as fantastic as it is, we experienced in one particular situation, it had a memory leak. So the system was running out of memory over a period of time. So until Nx were able to work with us and identify the problem, I think we actually just waited for another release of Nx and it sort of fixed that problem for this particular camera that it was involved. We just restarted that network Optix media server every morning. 7:15 is the example here. The downtime on that, I think, was because it was a safe shutdown of the whole system. The downtime was less than 20 seconds of that service up and down. Another very new feature in our cockpit web management. It doesn't come by default. It is as part of I'll call it a plugin from 45 Drives, very nice bunch of guys who do super large disk storage management systems based off Ceph, which is distributed server storage stuff, big huge Google-based stuff. We can turn our NxOS into a NAS server. So it doesn't have to be running Nx. It could be just making all of the hard drives in your hardware storage available to Nx for external storage.
Sorry,
my argument is...
Just had a quick question come through. Can you control where the snapshot saves? For example, could this be sent to a cloud drive?
It has to be available to the operating system. So let's just jump back to that. So in this case, we're saving it to a local storage. With Linux, if you can make that storage available to the operating system, then send it there. Go for it. Use NFS shares, use SMB shares, if you've got plugins that give you FTP file storage, do it. You could, in fact, with Linux, FTP. So the question is, whatever the operating system can see is you can do. The answer to the question is, sorry, whatever the operating system can see. So it's just a case of making sure the operating system. I'm pretty sure that people are going to have lots of questions about timer snapshot, and may in fact be one of the many reasons people are actually watching this. So we can either talk to you separately about it, or discuss things further with you on it. As to not tie up people's time, I'll just sort of progress our way through the what's it called, a presentation. Do you think that answered the question there, Matt?
Yep, all good.
Answer. Yep. NAS management, SMB, Linux is network file sharing. So you can set your operating system up as a NAS storage. The thing about NAS storage is typically you can't do anything with it other than what it's designed to do. But if you've got some physical hardware that's capable of running Nx server, then why not run Nx server on it and have it running as a NAS, because you can merge it, have it set up as a replicated database, just as a backup server. Whereas typical NAS, you wouldn't be able to do that because they don't give you access to the operating system to be able to do that, or it might not actually be built on Ubuntu, which is so many different versions of Linux. It may not actually be compatible with Nx. This is. So you can have the best of both worlds. You can have all the worlds, or just treat it as individual devices. Within the sharing, we've got some RAID. That's all software-based RAID, all done through the cockpit. RAID 0, RAID 1. I'm not going to get into discussions on RAID, other than to say I'm not a fan of the higher levels of RAID. In the higher levels of RAID, you're
going to start a discussion on something that you don't want to start a discussion on.
You're very good point there, Matt.
You just said I don't want to start a discussion on RAID, and then literally went into a ramble about how you don't like RAID.
Well, you see, remember the Muppets at the beginning? I'm going to go into it now. Now that you've said it, I'm going to go into it because I've got a graphic that shows it.
Yeah, don't.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. RAID, the upper levels of RAID have a rewrite overhead. So one of one of the things I say to IT people, generally IT people are absolutely great, but they don't understand video workload. In their world, they have a disk set, and they have transactions coming in on that disk set. Let's call them invoices and invoice numbers and that sort of thing. In their world, if their disk set gets full, if their storage runs out, they get fired, because their job is to never run out of storage, always make sure we have it available. In the video world, our disk sets get 100% full, or near enough, as a natural course of action. In fact, if our disk sets do not get full, we get fired. So when you explain that to IT people, they kind of start saying, oh, hang on, what do you mean? And the workload on disk sets between a normal thing and video is great. And when RAID gets 100% full and has to write stuff, delete stuff and write stuff back in, that's when RAID turns into a slug. So that's it, Matt. I'm not going to dwell on that.
Move on.
Moving on. Within the networking interface, we have the ability to turn all of our network ports on a server act as a network switch. You might not want different physical network subnets. You may, in fact, want our 8-port PoE server to have an uplink to it, function in our cameras, and you might want to cascade it off onto another server, but you want everything on the same network. So what we do is you can bridge all of those network ports together, or 1, 2, or 3, or whatever combinations you like. And you can literally turn your server into a network switch. That's probably going over the head of a lot of people, but it's a very cool thing that you can do with your networks. And in fact, we use on our PoE servers, we actually do what's called a shared network on the PoE servers, whereby the PoE ports become their own private network. A DHCP server gets enabled on that private network, and the internet is passable on that network through the other network ports through network address translation, NAT. Essentially what that means is we can almost create a plug and play style NX appliance, especially when you start using digital watchdog cameras. Are really cool because their cameras are DHCP enabled out of the box. Lots of other camera brands have got a static IP and you've got to prepare them. The digital watchdogs are cool, DHCP enabled, plug them into the PoE ports, they show up on NX, you right click, you set your admin credentials, and bang, you're away. You don't have to program a single thing. So very nice, very cool, using shared network ports. I'd be surprised if you don't get a question on that one come through, Matt. Now, next, moving into Cockpit. Cockpit provides a command line interface to the server. From anyone who needs command line access, you've got it through a web interface through port 9090. There's just lots of things that we might get our installers to do that's not scripted, so you end up having to do that. A couple other tools that we like using, probably me more so than anyone else, is I'm a Google Chrome fan, so I bundle Chrome Remote Desktop. Chrome Remote Desktop is literally how I'm going to do my demonstration next, unfortunately, due to the fact I don't want to run a VM inside a VM, and I don't have the hardware resource for it. But with Google Chrome Remote Desktop, it allows you to take control of the person's computer, remote support. And one of the cool things about Chrome Remote Desktop, and we bundle the necessary installer into our OS so it doesn't need to get downloaded and you go through that process headache, which is, for some people, it's more of a headache than others. But you can actually set it up headless. So as long as you've got 9090 access and terminal access to our server, you can follow Google Chrome remote desktop instructions and just put these commands into the terminal, and you'll take control of the person's computer. No screen, keyboard, mouse. Another product, my personal favorite, is DW Service. It's an open source remote control team viewer clone kind of thing. Great thing about it is it does everything in a web browser. So after downloading the little controller agent, everything's done in a web browser. And I'm hoping that in the next version of NX, I can actually run screen remote control as a web browser within the NX interface. It doesn't at the moment because of session credentials not passing through, but I'm pretty sure it does in the new one. DW Service, very cool, cross-platform, Windows, Linux, Mac. It also allows you to install it silently in the background with no user interaction. So as long as you've got command line access, you can put it in silent mode, either with a key that gets generated off the website or your email credentials that you've logged in with. This is an example of me installing DW Agent silently through the command line. We just run a command that gets it, downloads it for us, and another command that just installs it. Have I just missed the screen? Yep, I did. I thought I did have an example of DW Service running on the website, but that's okay.
We are running a bit over time, Andrew, so we kind of need to cut it shorter now.
Cool.
We try to limit these webinars to an hour, so we don't want to take up too much of everyone's.
I don't know how long I've rabbited on for, mate.
1
I
hour.
don't have my counter on me. An hour. Okay. Well, I'm gonna leave it at that because we've literally presented everything. We are gonna. All I was going to show you is the NxOS desktop, which you've pretty much seen in the presentation anyway. So I think the answer here is, if you want to know any more, here's your 2 contacts. I think I was being very generous to you, Matt, because of the other names I call you. That was probably the better of all the names I've come up with for you, mate.
Very much.
I'm pretty sure you don't. Don't you shave your legs?
No, mate.
Well, you're not.
I'm not a cyclist.
No, that was a vicious rumor.
Mm.
Listen, that's pretty much it. Thank you for your time. Let's see if there's any questions that want to go through, but quite literally you can get in touch with us to learn more, I think is the answer there.
Thank you for your time, everyone. As you said, feel free to send any questions you have through to myself or through to Andrew. Yeah, have a great day. And yeah, we'll talk to you all soon.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Sorry about the wee hiccup in the middle.
All good. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, bud.